This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Pasasaan pa ang kalayaan kung ang mga alipin ngayon ay sila din naman mang-aalipin bukas.
Ibigin mo ang iyong bayan ng sunod kay Bathala, sa iyong kapurihan at higit sa lahat sa iyong sarili.
Hindi natin mapapalaya ang ating mga sarili maliban kung sumulong tayo na nagkakaisa sa iisang hangarin.
Ang tunay na makabayan ay ang tumutupad ng pagpapabuti ng kanyang mga kapwa, gaano man kaaba ang kanyang katungkulan. Naway magsilbing paalala ang kanilang mga salita upang lalo nating mahalin at tapat na paglingkuran ang minamahal nating inang bayan.
In the headlines, a major power shift in Caracas. Venezuela's military formally recognizes acting President Delcy Rodriguez as commander-in-chief as President Donald Trump reopens Venezuelan airspace and U.S. oil giants begin scouting operations, signaling a rapid thaw in bilateral ties following the capture of Nicolas Maduro. Daylight violence in Mexico. Police seal off a scene in Sinaloa after a gun attack targets politicians near a party headquarters. Authorities say the shooting appears deliberative. Manila walks a diplomatic tightrope. The Philippine government says it can combine firm action and diplomacy in dealing with China, adding that declaring Chinese envoys persona non grata is a serious step that must not be rushed. Impeachment door shut. The Supreme Court dismisses the House motion for reconsideration, affirming that articles of impeachment against Vice President Sara Duterte are unconstitutional, with lawmakers and the defense calling the case closed. Meanwhile, farmer anger spills into the streets of Spain. Farmers paralyzed Valencia with tractor convoys, escalating protests against the EU-Mercosur trade deal they warn will undercut local agriculture. Latin America seeks unity. Regional leaders meeting in Panama calls for a single economic bloc, urging coordinated action to weather global shocks and reduce foreign dependence. Solidarity for Greenland. Music legend Neil Young offers Greenland residents free access to his entire catalog, a show of solidarity as tensions involving the US and NATO continue to rise. And in sports, Jofra Archer makes his return for England, named in the playing 11 for the first T20 against Sri Lanka in Kandy. I'm Troy Gomez. Newsline World starts now. In the news, Mexico Sinaloa is rocked by a violent gun battle in broad daylight, targeting politicians near a political party's headquarters in what authorities say appears to be a deliberate attack. Carlo de la Peña will give us more detail.
Police have sealed off the scene of a daylight shooting in Sinaloa after Mexican politicians were targeted near a political party's headquarters. Authorities say gunfire erupted in the area, prompting an immediate security response and the establishment of a police cordon as investigators worked to assess the situation and gather evidence. Details on the number of victims and the identities of those targeted have not yet been fully confirmed, but officials say the attack appears to have been deliberate and politically motivated. The incident has heightened security concerns in the region as violence linked to political activity continues to pose a challenge ahead of key events and gatherings. An investigation is now underway, with authorities urging the public to avoid the area while forensic teams remain on site. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
Thousands of demonstrators flooded the streets of Lima on Wednesday for the March of Sacrifice, demanding accountability for the dozens killed during anti-government protests 3 years ago. The demobilization comes as the interim government of Jose Herri faces withering criticisms for dismantling the legal teams investigating police brutality. Valdivini Gracia reports.
Clutching portraits of the fallen, families from Peru's southern regions joined social collectives in a massive trek toward the Palace of Justice. Dubbed the March of Sacrifice, the demonstration marks the anniversary of the 2023 killing of Victor Santisteban, one of more than 50 civilians reported killed during the wave of repression under former President Dina Boluarte. The atmosphere in the capital is thick with tension as protesters denounce the recent disbanding of the prosecutorial team that was tasked with investigating state-sponsored violence.
Nos están negando la justicia. Han desactivado equipos especiales donde se investigaban los casos. Una vez más, intentan ganar la impunidad en nuestro país.
The protesters' anger is also focused in current President Jose Herri, who took office in October 2025 after Boluarte was ousted by Congress. Critics label Herri a puppet of a right-wing parliamentary pact, accusing his administration of protecting law enforcement officers involved in the deadly crackdowns. Human rights organizations report that nearly 60 individuals died in the 2022-2023 unrest, with the majority of the fatalities occurring in the regions of Ayacucho and Juliaca. Despite international pressure, most of the judicial cases remain stalled, and the recent Shifagate scandal involving President Herri has further eroded public trust in the transition government. As the March of Sacrifice participants settle in Lima, they vow to remain in the capital until their demands for truth and reparations are met. With general elections scheduled for April, the specter of the 2023 massacres continues to haunt Peru's political landscape, serving as a rallying cry for a nation still searching for closure. Reporting for Newsline World, this is Valdivina Gracia, SMNA News.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said the Philippine-ASEAN Business Advisory Council chairship for this year will focus on building economic corridors to boost trade, investment, and regional supply chains across Southeast Asia. President Catarong tells us more.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. on Thursday said the Philippines will focus on boosting trade and investment, strengthening regional supply chains, and expanding business opportunities across Southeast Asia as the country assumes the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Business Advisory Council or ASEAN-backed chairship for 2026. Speaking at the formal turnover ceremony held at Malacanang Palace, President Marcos reaffirmed the country's full support for ASEAN-backed programs and initiatives in the coming year, guided by the ASEAN 2026 chairship theme, Navigating Our Future Together.
We will continue to provide platforms for dialogue and partnership by bringing together policymakers, business leaders, investors, innovators.
As the ASEAN-backed chairship transitions from Malaysia to Philippines, President Marcos highlighted the Council's role as a key partner in advancing ASEAN's shared priorities and regional goals. He stressed that ASEAN's strength lies in its collective ability to build on past gains and move forward together. The president noted that ASEAN-back's 2026 priorities, anchored on the 4 pillars of people, planet, platform, and productivity, are closely aligned with the Philippines' national priorities. These include empowering micro, small, and medium enterprises, strengthening food security and agricultural productivity, advancing a digitally connected and AI-enabled ASEAN, and promoting industrial growth and deeper regional integration. Emphasizing the vital role of the private sector, President Marcos recognized ASEAN-back's contribution as a trusted partner in translating regional aspirations into concrete action, especially as the Council marks its silver anniversary.
I fully trust the Council's readiness to approach this task with competence and with confidence.
Reporting for Newsline World, this has been President Catarong, SMNI News.
Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar has welcomed a landmark decision by the European Union to officially designate the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, or RGC, as a terrorist organization. The move, described as a turning point in global security, targets the elite military unit accused of exporting terrorism and repressing the Iranian people. Almar Forzuelo reports.
In a recorded message from Jerusalem, Foreign Minister Gideon Saar celebrated what he called an important and historic victory in the long-standing diplomatic battle against Tehran. The European Union's decision marks a massive shift in policy, effectively blacklisting the IRGC, an entity that not only controls a vast portion of Iran's economy but also oversees its ballistic missile and drone programs. Saar noted that the designation is a heavy blow to the legitimacy of the Iranian regime and provides a moral boost to Iranian citizens fighting for freedom.
החלטת שרי החוץ של האיחוד האירופי להכריז על משמרות המהפכה של איראן כארגון טרור היא החלטה חשובה והיסטורית. בשיחות הרבות מספור שקיימתי עם שרי החוץ של מדינות אירופה, הסברתי להם את המשמעות הפרקטית האדירה של הנקיטה בצעד הזה, שתשליך על גוף שמרכז חלק אדיר מהכלכלה האיראנית, והוא גם מוביל היום את הדיכוי הרצחני של העם האיראני, אחרי שהוא הוביל במשך עשרות שנים את הפצת הטרור ואת הפצת אי היציבות בכל המזרח התיכון. יש לכך גם משמעות גדולה בעידוד בני ובנות העם האיראני שנאבקים על חירותם, ויש לזה עוד משמעות שעומדת אולי מעל לכולן. הלגיטימציה של המשטר הרצחני והדכאני הזה נסדקה היום באופן משמעותי ביותר, ולכך יש חשיבות אדירה. זה גם הישג חשוב למאבק ארוך מאוד שאנחנו ניהלנו, שהגיע להישגים עד היום במדינות בעולם, אבל היום הגיע לנקודה מאוד משמעותית, לדעתי נקודת מפנה.
EU High Representative Kaja Kalyas confirmed the move, stating that foreign ministers took this critical step to address the IRGC's role in spreading instability throughout the Middle East and beyond. The designation allows the EU to freeze the group's assets and impose travel bans, severely limiting its ability to operate within European financial systems. In Tehran, the General Staff of the Armed Forces issued a sharp condemnation, claiming the EU acted under pressure from the United States and Israel. The IRGC has long been under fire for its support of proxy groups like Hezbollah and its involvement in cracking down on domestic protests in Iran. Experts say this move by the EU brings European policy in line with the United States and Canada, creating a more unified Western front against Iran's military apparatus. As the geopolitical landscape shifts, the Israeli government vows to continue its global campaign to isolate the IRGC and dismantle its international network of influence. Reporting for Newsline World, Almar Forzuelo, SMNI News.
Amid lingering questions about the Department of Tourism, our reporter is in Cebu, where Secretary Cristina Garcia Frasco reaffirmed that President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. continues to place his trust and confidence in her leadership. Paul Montibon will give us the details.
In recent months, the Department of Tourism has been surrounded by various issues that raised questions about whether the President's trust in its leadership still stands. Here in Cebu, Tourism Secretary Cristina Garcia Frasco made it clear that the President's trust and confidence in her and in the entire agency remain firm.
During the opening of ASEAN Tourism Meeting 2026, Tourism Secretary Frasco has stressed that Malacanang continues to support her leadership despite the controversies previously faced by the department. She stressed that the President's trust goes beyond personal confidence, noting that there is a clear directive from the administration to prioritize tourism as a key pillar of economic recovery following the COVID-19 pandemic, which severely affected the livelihoods of many Filipinos.
I'm very grateful to our President as well as to the national government for supporting tourism in the Philippines. I believe the matter has been clearly addressed by the palace, and that has yielded that I continue to enjoy the President's trust. So I'm very grateful for that.
Alongside the ASEAN Tourism Meeting, the DOT is ramping up marketing campaigns and building stronger partnerships with local and international stakeholders, efforts aimed at attracting more visitors and generating more employment opportunities across the country. Secretary Frasco also expressed her personal gratitude to the people of Cebu, citing their continued warmth, cooperation, and world-class hospitality extended to visitors from different parts of the world.
And nagpasalamat sad ko sa atong mga kaigsuunang Subuanon nga padayon gayod nga nagpakita sa ilang kaligdong isip mga Subuanon ug ilang gipakita gayod ang ilang manindot kayo nga gawi no sa paghatag og world-class hospitality alang sa atong mga bisita sa lain-laing dapit sa tibuok kalibutan. Magtinabangay ta aron nga mulambo ang turismo sa Pilipinas.
Meanwhile, the Department of Tourism also addressed public concerns regarding high airfare prices, particularly for flights bound for Siargao, an issue affecting both tourists and local communities. According to the DOT, discussions with airline companies are ongoing to help reduce airfare costs and make travel to major destinations more affordable for the public. The department clarified that despite airfare concerns, many destinations in the Philippines remain competitive, affordable, and rich in natural attractions, with provinces like Cebu continuing to offer diverse tourism experiences.
So there are very many competitive destinations in the Philippines. As far as Cebu is concerned, because of our partnerships and our focus on routes development, there were no less than 12 new international flights coming into Cebu. So that shows the growing connectivity of this very beautiful province.
For the Department of Tourism, the President's trust must be matched with concrete result. More tourists, more jobs, and a stronger, more resilient tourism sector for the country. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, reporting for Newsline World, this has been Paul Montebon, SMNI News.
Up next, a major power shift in Caracas. Venezuela's military formally recognizes acting President Delcy Rodriguez as Commander-in-Chief as President Donald Trump reopens Venezuelan airspace and U.S. oil giants begin scouting operations, signaling a rapid thaw in bilateral ties following the capture of Nicolas Maduro. And Latin America seeks unity. Regional leaders meeting in Panama calls for a single economic bloc, urging coordinated action to weather global shocks and reduce foreign dependence. More news when Newsline World returns.
Ikaw ba ay namomroblema sa taas ng electric bill buwan-buwan? Huwag mag-alala, narito ang ilang paraan upang makatipid sa kuryente. Patayin ang mga ilaw at appliances kapag hindi ginagamit. Sa halip ay gumamit ng natural na liwanag upang makatipid sa kuryente. Tanggalin sa saksakan ang mga appliances kung hindi ginagamit. Iwasan ang paggamit ng maraming appliances ng sabay-sabay. Gumamit ng LED bulbs. Ito ay mas tipid sa kuryente kumpara sa mga incandescent at fluorescent bulbs. Regular na linisin ang mga appliances tulad ng electric fan, aircon vents at refrigerator. Magkaroon ng takdang araw sa isang linggo sa pamamalansya at paglalaba. Gumamit ng energy-efficient appliances. Tandaan, maging wais sa paggamit ng kuryente upang makatipid para mas gumaan ang buhay. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
Madalas ka bang napapasobra sa pag-scroll sa phone mo kahit puro masasamang balita ang nakikita mo? Isipin mo ito. Nakahiga ka na sa kama, nagche-check lang ng phone bago matulog. Tapos, hindi mo na malayan, ilang oras ka na palang nagbabasa at nanonood ng mga balita tungkol sa digmaan, sakuna, politika at lahat ng masasamang nangyayari sa mundo. Nakakaramdam ka na ng kaba at pagod, pero tuloy mo pa rin ang scroll mo. Ang tawag dyan,
ay doom scrolling. Ito ang habit ng paulit-ulit na pagtingin sa mga negatibo o nakakadepress na content tulad ng digmaan, krimen o problema sa mundo. Nakaka-stress pero hindi mo pa rin mapigilan. Ayon sa isang pag-aaral ng Texas Tech University, ang sobrang konsumo ng masasamang balita ay nauugnay sa pagtaas ng stress, anxiety at pisikal na sintomas gaya ng pagkapagod at sakit ng ulo. Ayon naman sa Harvard Health, ang doom scrolling ay nagpapataas ng fight or flight hormones tulad ng cortisol at adrenaline na nakakapagpabigat ng isip at katawan. Nakakaapekto ito sa iyong mood, tulog at maging sa mental at physical health mo. At kapag naman puro memes at random na content ang pinapanood mo ng sunod-sunod hanggang sa mawalan ka na ng gana na mag-isip at gumawa ng iba pang gawain, ang tawag naman dyan ay brain rot. Sa Gen Z at tinatawag na internet culture, ang brain rot ay overconsumption o sobrang tagal na panonood ng paulit-ulit, mababaw, magulo o walang saysay na content online hanggang sa parang manhid na ang utak mo. Kapag nasobrahan, syempre, nakakasama. Nawawalan ka na ng focus, nawawala ang motivation, hirap mag-isip ng malalim, parang lutang o foggy ang utak. Masaya sa simula, pero kapag sobra, napapagod ang isip mo. Nahihirapang mag-concentrate at parang lutang. Mas delikado pa ito sa mga bata dahil ang utak nila ay nasa proseso pa ng pag-develop. Kaya mas malakas ang epekto ng doom scrolling at brain rot sa kanila. Maaaring makaapekto sa pag-aaral, pag-iisip at pakikitungo sa iba. Ang higit sa 4 na oras ng screen time araw-araw sa mga kabataan ay konektado sa 35 to 88% na mas mataas na posibilidad ng depresyon, anxiety at stress. Base ito sa isang malawakang pag-aaral sa Brazil. Kaya, maging balanse. Magpahinga sa screen, magbasa, makipagkwentuhan, magdasal, maging present lagi. Alagaan ang iyong isipan. Kung anong itinatanim sa isipan mo, yun ang lalago.
In a symbolic display of power, the Venezuelan armed forces have formally recognized acting President Delcy Rodriguez as their commander-in-chief. The move comes as President Donald Trump announces the full reopening of commercial airspace and the return of American oil giants to Venezuelan soil, signaling a rapid thaw in relations following the capture of Nicolas Maduro. Prince Tripoli gives us more details.
Caracas witnessed a historic shift on Wednesday as acting President Delcy Rodriguez stood before the High Military Command to be officially recognized as the nation's commander-in-chief. Rodriguez, appointed by the Supreme Tribunal following the U.S. military operation that detained Nicolas Maduro on January 3rd, described the current era as the most challenging in 2 centuries of Venezuelan history. While defiant against foreign aggression, her tone shifted toward a pragmatic politics with a capital P, emphasizing a dialogue among Venezuelans without external interference.
El honor que me confiere estar hoy encargada de la presidencia de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela en una coyuntura extraordinaria, compleja, tan compleja que yo diría de las más en los últimos 2 siglos de nuestra historia. Estamos dispuestos al entendimiento, estamos dispuestos al diálogo, pero no estamos dispuestos a otra agresión.
The understanding she spoke of is already manifesting in Washington. During his first cabinet meeting of 2026, President Donald Trump revealed he has been in direct contact with Rodriguez. Trump praised the strong security provided by the new leadership and instructed the immediate reopening of all commercial airspace over Venezuela, allowing American citizens to travel to the country for the first time in years.
And I just spoke to the president of Venezuela, informed her that we're going to be opening up all commercial airspace over Venezuela. American citizens will be very shortly able to go to Venezuela, and they'll be safe there. They'll be safe. It's under very strong control.
The shift is as much about energy as it is about diplomacy. Trump confirmed that major U.S. oil companies are already scouting locations in Venezuela to tap into the world's largest oil reserves. Under a preliminary agreement, Rodriguez has already authorized the supply of up to 50 million barrels of oil to the U.S. and released over 260 political prisoners as a gesture of goodwill. While Maduro and his wife Celia Flores await trial in New York on narco-terrorism charges, the new Venezuelan under Rodriguez appears to be pivoting towards an economic alliance with its northern neighbor. For the millions of Venezuelans in Miami's Little Venezuela and those still in Caracas, the reopening of the skies marks the end of an era of isolation and the beginning of an uncertain yet lucrative new partnership. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Prince Tripoli, SMNA News.
In a sweeping move against cross-border cybercrime, China has executed 11 members of a notorious telecom fraud syndicate accused of running deadly scam operations from Myanmar. China's state media said the executions followed the Supreme People Court's final review, which rejected appeals and upheld death sentences for crimes including fraud, illegal gambling, and murder. The executions were carried out in Zhejiang province, with family members permitted final visits. Authorities identified the group as the Ming Family Criminal Network, which operated multiple compounds in Myanmar's Kokang region and allegedly shielded scam operations with armed force. Officials said the syndicate recruited fraud bosses, detained workers, and generated more than 10 billion yuan through telecom scams and gambling schemes. The group was also accused of carrying out violent acts, including killings and assaults that left at least 14 Chinese citizens dead. China's top court said the crimes were especially heinous and posed a serious threat to public safety, justifying the harshest punishment under the law. Regional leaders gathered in Panama City for this year's International Economic Forum have issued a powerful call for unity, urging Latin American nations to act as a single economic bloc, from defying U.S. interventions to promoting capitalism for everyone. Faith Agustin tells us more.
The Palace of the Herons and the halls of the International Economic Forum became the epicenter of a new Latin American vision this week. Panamanian President Jose Raul Mulino set the tone, arguing that in a world facing a great storm, the region must move past idealistic diplomacy toward a realistic and united front to secure a permanent seat on the UN Security Council.
Estoy convencido que América Latina debe conformarse como un bloque único, pues solo así tendrá poder de negociación y poder concreto ante posibles amenazas.
However, the shadow of the recent U.S. military operation in Venezuela loomed large over the discussions. Brazilian President Lula da Silva slammed the paralysis of regional bodies like CELAC, while Colombian President Gustavo Petro delivered a scathing critique, warning that future generations would not forget the bombing of the homeland of the liberator.
No queremos misiles sobre Caracas, no, ni sobre ningún país de América. Ni al norte ni al sur. En la historia entre Estados Unidos y América Latina, haber bombardeado la patria del Libertador no lo va a olvidar ninguna generación de jóvenes en ninguna parte de nuestro país, ni de América Latina basada en la libertad y el Caribe.
Amidst the political friction, a strong current of economic pragmatism emerged. Bolivian President Rodrigo Paz offered his nation's 5 borders as a logistical hub, introducing the concept of camirismo, an Aymara term for abundance, as a model for capitalism for everyone.
La ideología no te da de comer. Lo que te da de comer es el empleo. Ahora Bolivia, con sus 5 fronteras, quiere que no solo los 5 presidentes de fronteras sean parte de la construcción de lo que estamos intentando hacer. Y queremos generar abundancia con ustedes, terminar con los estados tranca.
The sentiment was echoed by Chilean President-elect Jose Antonio Cast, who urged leaders to stop managing failure and transcend ideological borders to defeat the common enemy of organized crime. Ecuador's Daniel Noboa reinforced this, framing the fight against drug trafficking as the ultimate struggle for regional freedom.
Ha llegado la hora de cruzar fronteras, no solo ideológicas, sino también nacionales. Para Chile eso implica mirar a Bolivia, a Perú y Argentina, no desde la sospecha, sino desde la cooperación concreta. Para América Latina implica entender que ningún país se salva solo, en un mundo cada vez más competitivo y más duro. La fragmentación nos debilita, la coordinación nos fortalece.
As the forum concluded, the message from Panama was clear. While the North may be in crisis, the Global South is finding its voice through transparency, dialogue, and a renewed appetite for autonomy. The challenge now remains whether these diverse leaders can turn their ideas on paper into a functioning reality for over 600 million citizens. This has been Faith Agustin, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
The Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, has assured that it will continue to strengthen its cooperation with the Indonesian government to further protect migrant workers, particularly Filipino workers in the fishing sector. During a courtesy call held on January 29 at the DMW Central Office, Migrant Workers Officer-in-Charge Undersecretary Felicitas Q. stated that the relationship between the Philippines and Indonesia remains active in advancing the welfare and rights of migrant workers, including both sea-based and land-based workers. The two nations reaffirmed their joint advocacy for fair, ethical, and sustainable recruitment practices as a crucial step against abuse and illegal activities in the employment of migrant workers. Juliana Bahar, Assistant Secretary and Director of ASEAN Socio-Cultural Cooperation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia, and Christiara Linga Tresnawijaya, Second Secretary of the said Directorate, attended the courtesy call. According to the DMW, this is part of the agency's ongoing commitment to ensure the protection and welfare of overseas Filipino workers under the Philippines' bilateral partnerships with other countries. When we return, Manila walks a diplomatic tightrope. The Philippine government says it can combine firm action and diplomacy in dealing with China, adding that declaring Chinese envoys persona non grata is a serious step that must not be rushed. And impeachment doors shut. The Supreme Court dismisses the House motion for reconsideration, affirming that articles of impeachment against Vice President Sara Duterte are unconstitutional, with lawmakers and the defense calling the case closed. More news after the break.
Isang pindot lang, pwede kang maka-jackpot. Mukhang masaya at easy money lang. Sa murang halaga, pwede ka na tumaya sa online gambling at e-casino apps. Mayroong sabong, slot machines, mahjong, poker at iba pa. Kailangan mo lang ng smartphone, e-wallet at internet. Pero ang aliw na ito, unti-unting nagiging bitag para sa mga Pilipino. Lalo na kung ang paborito mong artista o influencer ang mukha ng app. Mas madaling makaengganyo, diba? Parang safe naman kasi may kilalang mukha. Pero sa likod ng ngiti, sugal pa rin ang itinutulak. At syempre, mas madali ring itago ang pagkalulong sa bisyong ito. Walang pisikal na kasino o pasugalan, walang kaharap, walang accountability, kaya't mas lumalala ang adiksyon. Dagdag pa rito, maraming online gambling apps at walang regulasyon. Sa likod ng mga makukulay na interface at papremyo, nakatago ang problemang bumabalot ngayon sa bansa. Ang pagkalulong ng maraming Pilipino sa online gambling. Pwede maglaro kahit saan, kahit kailan, kahit sino, bata man o matanda, pwedeng malulong. Ayon sa mga eksperto, ang pagkakalulong sa online gambling ay nagdudulot ng matinding stress at anxiety, pagkakabaon sa utang, pagkawasak ng pamilya, pagkawala ng tiwala sa sarili. At tulad ng ibang bisyo, may mga senyales ito tulad ng hindi makapagpigil kahit walang pera, palihim na tumataya, pagpapabaya sa trabaho, pamilya o sarili. Sa bawat taya, may mga taong tunay na kumikita, mga malalaking negosyante at investors na negosyo ang bisyo ng masa. Para sa kanila, perang pumapasok lang ito, pero para sa ordinaryong Pilipino, kabuhayan at relasyon ang nauubos. At ang masakit, tila matagal itong nahayaan. Hindi ito naging prioridad ng mga nakaupo sa taas hanggang sa sobrang lumala at halos naapektuhan na ang buong komunidad. Ngayon, sa dami ng nalulung at sa laki ng pinsalang naidulot, sa kapalalong umugong ang mga panukalang batas para higpitan ng online gambling, gaya ng pagbabawal sa paggamit ng e-wallets para tumaya, pagtaas ng minimum bet, mas mahigpit na identity verification, pag-block ng mga illegal na gambling sites, at bawasan o ipagbawal ang mga ads na target ang kabataan. Maaari itong magmukhang laro lang, pero sa katotohanan, isa itong sugal sa kinabukasan. Ang kita na dapat sa mga pangunahing pangangailangan o ipon na uubos sa sugal. At sa mundo ng online gambling, mas madali kang matalo kaysa manalo. Huwag hayaang sugal ang magdikta sa iyong buhay. Isang paalala mula sa SMNI.
The government has announced that declaring Chinese embassy officials as persona non grata is a serious step that must not be rushed and requires careful consideration due to its significant implications for the country's foreign relations. Malacanang stated that the government can simultaneously employ firm action and diplomacy amidst the heating tensions between Philippine and Chinese officials. Criselyn Catarong reports.
The Department of Foreign Affairs has acknowledged the proposed resolutions in both chambers of Congress, calling for certain diplomatic personnel of the Chinese embassy in the Philippines to be declared persona non grata. In a DFA statement read by Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary Claire Castro during a palace briefing on Thursday, declaring someone persona non grata is described as one of the most severe diplomatic actions the government can impose against foreign diplomats. While this power resides with the DFA, it is considered a last resort and is only utilized when diplomatic ties have been severely damaged and there are no other means to repair the relationship between the two countries. The agency also emphasized that such a move carries significant implications, including possible retaliatory actions or other countermeasures from the opposing side. Because of this, the move requires careful deliberation and preparation for its impact on the long-term interests of the Philippines.
It also carries tremendous implications moving forward, such as reciprocal action or other countermeasures in other areas, which is why it should not be made lightly and decided only with careful and clear thought and preparedness for how it will shape the Philippines' strategic interests moving forward.
The DFA assured that it remains committed to its mandate of conducting appropriate and effective diplomacy that promotes the national interest. Direct communication between the Philippines and the Chinese government also continues regarding important bilateral and international issues.
It is hoped that the DFA would be provided with ample space to perform its functions and to sort out issues with foreign counterparts through dialogue and consultation rather than through public discourse, in accordance with the President's vision and guidance as the architect of Philippine foreign policy.
Meanwhile, Malacanang announced that President Marcos Jr. is aware of the ongoing exchange of statements between Philippine and Chinese officials.
Aware po siya at nakikipag-usap din po siya kay Secretary Tess Lazaro at ang aking nabanggit na sinasabi nating polisiya, yun po ang sinasabi ng Pangulo.
In a statement released this January 28, Embassy spokesperson Ji Lingpeng stated that there is no longer a need to further escalate the issue. He added that they could simply declare Ambassador Xinquan as persona non grata. That would be the most direct step. As ambassador, he bears responsibility for all the words and actions of the Chinese embassy. However, he will do so with immense pride and honor as he has fulfilled his duty and responsibility as a diplomat of China for his country. The embassy official further mentioned that if any Chinese diplomat is to be declared persona non grata, the entire 12-member media affairs and public diplomacy team should be included as well. However, the Chinese embassy in the Philippines asserted that even if the embassy were to be closed, they would continue to oppose any smears and misinformation against China. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been President Catarong, SMNI News.
Former Secretary of the Department of National Defense, Norberto Gonzales, said there is now a breakdown in the government's leadership, meaning the president no longer has control over the agencies under his authority, something he says is worsening the Philippines' problems with China. Almar Porzuelo has the news.
Pinagdududahan ko yun na ang tinitingnan lang doon para maging popular sa susunod na eleksyon.
This was the reaction of former Department of National Defense Secretary Norberto Gonzales after several senators condemned the Chinese embassy in the Philippines. The senators' criticism stemmed from the response of some Chinese embassy officials to what they describe as an attack or smear by Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson Jay Tariela against Chinese President Xi Jinping during a seminar. According to the former DND chief, Tariela's actions were inappropriate.
Normally, hindi tama. Pero ang problema natin, mukhang may breakdown tayo ng policy natin sa international. Hindi malinaw ang mga guidelines natin. Ay yung mga katulad ni Tariela ba yun? O mga katulad yan, gumagawa ng sariling aksyon.
Gonzales emphasized that guidelines from the president regarding statements against other countries should be clear to prevent a single spokesperson from acting independently.
Kasi dapat malinaw ang mga guidelines yan, lalo ganyan, no? Sensitive ang ating issue sa China. Pinapakialaman mismo ng Pangulo yan. Pero tingnan mo ginawa ni Tariela. O tapos, sa halip na pagsabihan natin si Tariela na hindi tama yung kanyang ginawa, may mga sa lipunan natin, ang medyo lalo pang dinadagdagan yung ginawa ni Tariela.
Following this, Gonzales said that some senators were merely overreacting to the issue, including calls to expel diplomats or declare China persona non grata.
Palagay ko medyo sumusobra naman o kaya overacting tayo, overreacting sa nangyayari. Nakikita natin bakit yung threat na paalisin natin, gagawin natin persona non grata ang China. Sa tingin ko, overreaction yun.
While Gonzales clarified that he is not pleased with China's actions against the Philippines, he stressed that one mistake should not be answered with another.
Hindi ko masasabi na natutuwa ako sa ginagawa ng China, no? Pero wag mo namang gantihan yan ng mga bagay na hindi rin nakakatuwa. Wag mong bigyan ng solusyon ng kamalian, ng another kamalian. Pakita natin, disente tayong tao.
The former DND chief further explained that because of the behavior of some government officials in dealing with China, it is clear that the president is doing nothing and has no control over certain officials, resulting in breakdown in leadership.
Isa nga yan sa malaking issue natin sa Pangulo, kaya hindi ba may mga nagsasabi na mag-resign na dapat ang Pangulo kasi mukhang hindi niya kaya. Yan isang indikasyon na hindi niya kaya. Ang ginagawa ni Tariela, ang ibig sabihin lang niya, may breakdown ng leadership ng bansa. Kaya walang control. Hindi natin masasabi na hindi kontrolado. Wala naman nagkukontrol eh. Yan ang problema natin.
Because of what he described as the president's inaction, Gonzales fears the situation between the Philippines and China could worsen.
Ang masama, sa nangyayari, para bang ang reaksyon hindi nang gagaling sa dapat na nagdidesisyon bilang representante ng bansa natin. Baka luluba ang problema natin sa China na hindi natin pinagdesisyonan bilang isang bansa.
In the end, Gonzales said the government should re-evaluate its foreign policy, noting that even major countries respect China's growing strength and leadership around the world.
Ang dapat natin tingnan sa pagyayari na yan, yung mga sinasabi ng mga eksperto. Yung mga eksperto, sinasabi lang, hinay-hinay lang. Dapat pag-usapan ng mabuti ang relasyon natin sa China. Pati ako personal, irerekomenda ko na magkaroon ulit ng pag-uusap na seryoso ang gobyerno natin at yung mga nakakaintindi kung anong posisyon natin tungkol sa China. Buong mundo na ngayon nag-iisip kung paano makikipag-dialogue sa China. Tapos tayo, hindi pa tayo nakikipag-dialogue ng maayos, sisirain na natin. Ang pinag-aaralan ngayon ng mga ibang bansa sa paligid natin at even sa Europa ay kung paano iaayos ang dialogue with China.
For God and my beloved Philippines, Almar Forzuelo, SMNI News.
The Supreme Court has dismissed the House of Representatives' motion for reconsideration and affirmed its previous declaration that the articles of impeachment against Vice President Sara Duterte are unconstitutional, ruling that the Senate lacks the jurisdiction to proceed with the impeachment proceedings. Margaret Gonzalez for the detail.
The Supreme Court has officially ended the matter regarding the legality of the articles of impeachment against Vice President Sara Duterte after it dismissed the House of Representatives' motion for reconsideration. The motion sought for the justices to reverse their previous declaration of the complaint as unconstitutional and to render the articles of impeachment valid. It can be recalled that the initial decision received a unanimous vote from the justices. In another unanimous vote by the SC justices today, the High Court affirmed its July 2025 declaration that the fourth impeachment complaint transmitted by the House of Representatives to the Senate on February 5, 2025 violated the one-year bar rule. Consequently, the upper house of Congress has no jurisdiction to continue the proceedings.
By a unanimous vote of all those participating, the Supreme Court en banc denied with finality the motion for reconsideration filed by the House of Representatives, which sought to reverse the court's July 25, 2025 decision that declared the articles of impeachment against Vice President Sara Z. Duterte unconstitutional. It affirmed that the fourth impeachment complaint transmitted to the Senate on February 5, 2025 was already barred by Article 11, Section 3, Subsection 5 of the Constitution.
Among the points clarified by the Supreme Court in its decision is that the first three impeachment complaints received by the lower house was deemed initiated when the House failed to include them in the order of business within 10 session days. Under the one-year bar rule in Article 11, Section 3 of the Philippine Constitution, only one impeachment proceeding is allowed within a one-year period against an impeachable government official.
This decision of the court made sure that the constitutional rights are still protected in impeachment proceedings, and it actually expedited the proceedings with its interpretation of session days.
This decision of the Supreme Court is immediately executory, and no further appeals related to this matter will be entertained.
No further pleadings will be entertained.
Meanwhile, the defense team of Vice President Sara Duterte acknowledges the Supreme Court's decision dismissing the House of Representatives' appeal. They expressed gratitude for the clear guidance laid out by the Supreme Court regarding the proper process and the limitations of an impeachment complaint. According to the team, now that the matter is settled, it is time to focus on other more pressing problems facing the country. Meanwhile, in a statement from the House Speaker Boji D, he also said that they respect the court's decision and the standards for the impeachment process established by the Constitution. For God and beloved Philippines, this has been Margaret Gonzalez, SBN News.
In the recently publicized opinions of several justices following the Supreme Court's affirmation of the declaration that the articles of impeachment are unconstitutional, they emphasized that it is not only the impeachable officer but also the impeachment process itself that must be examined and judged. It was alleged that the House of Representatives circumvented the one-year bar rule, a move that justices argued should not be overlooked. Kay Villan reports.
Supreme Court Associate Justice Amy Lazaro Javier stated that it is not only the impeachable officer but also the impeachment process itself that must be scrutinized when rendering a judgment. This was emphasized by the justice in her separate opinion regarding her vote affirming the initial declaration that the articles of impeachment against Vice President Sara Duterte are unconstitutional. It can be recalled that the lack of due process and the violation of the one-year bar rule were the reasons behind the Supreme Court's dismissal of the House of Representatives Representatives motion for reconsideration. According to Javier, accountability applies to everyone. Therefore, it is not only the official being impeached who should be examined and judged, but also the institution that filed the case. The fairness of the process, the openness of the hearings, and the adherence to the Constitution are essential, she stated. According to her, when impeachment is conducted recklessly, the damage extends beyond the removed official. It also erodes public trust in the legislature and the Constitution. Meanwhile, in the separate concurring opinion of Associate Justice Ramon Paul Hernando, he stated that the House of Representatives circumvented the one-year bar rule in the impeachment proceedings. He noted that the House forgot the significance of the regulation by treating the one-year bar rule as a trivial command and actions he says that the court simply cannot overlook. The justice explained that the one-year bar rule was established to maintain a proper balance between holding government officials accountable and ensuring the orderly functioning of the government. He asserted that impeachment should not be overused, nor should its rules be entirely evaded. If either extreme is taken, he warned it leads to chaos. Reporting for Newsline World, Kai Villan, SMNI News.
A large group of business leaders expects a drop in the country's gross domestic product, or GDP, growth for the final quarter of the year, according to them. This is due to the ongoing corruption scandals within the government, Gina Tono reports.
The Philippines has failed to reach the economic growth target set by the government. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, the country's total income and productivity or gross domestic product grew by 4.4% in 2025. However, the figure is lower than the target range of 5.5% to 6.5%. This is also lower than the 3% growth recorded in the final quarter of 2025. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry meanwhile stated that they already expected the country's GDP to slow down in 2025. According to the business group, this is due to the corruption scandals involving the government's infrastructure projects. They added that this has also pushed the government to reduce or temporarily halt public spending on flood control projects. The group admits that the economy has weakened due to these issues. However, they reportedly believe that the Philippine economy will recover in the first quarter of 2026. PCCI expressed optimism following the statement made by Department of Public Works and Highways Secretary Vince Dizon, who vowed to clean up the agency and resume infrastructure spending. The PCCI added that immediate economic recovery and the implementation of measures to prevent such incidents from occurring are essential. The PCCI stated that the use of blockchain technology in the 2026 national budget will have major impact in ensuring that the spending of public funds is transparent and cannot be manipulated. For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Sheena Torno, SMNI News.
After the break, farmer anger spills into the streets of Spain. Farmers paralyzed Valencia with tractor convoys, escalating protests against the EU-Mercosur trade deal they warned will undercut local agriculture. Solidarity for Greenland. Music legend Neil Young offers Greenland residents free access to his entire catalog, a show of solidarity as tensions involving the US and NATO continue to rise. And in sports, Jofra Archer makes his return for England, named in the playing 11 for the first T20 against Sri Lanka in Kandy. We'll be back after the break.
Pasasaan pa ang kalayaan kung ang mga alipin ngayon ay sila din naman mang-aalipin bukas.
Ibigin mo ang iyong bayan ng sunod kay Bathala, sa iyong kapurihan at higit sa lahat sa iyong sarili.
Hindi natin mapapalaya ang ating mga sarili maliban kung sumulong tayo na nagkakaisa sa iisang hangarin.
Ang tunay na makabayan
ay ang tumutupad ng pagpapabuti ng kanyang mga kapwa, gaano man kaaba ang kanyang katungkulan. Naway magsilbing paalala ang kanilang mga salita upang lalo nating mahalin at tapat na paglingkuran ang minamahal nating inang bayan.
Tractor convoys paralyzed the city of Valencia on Thursday as Spanish farmers escalated their mobilizations against the controversial EU-Mercosur trade agreement. Protesters warned that the pact, recently signed in Asuncion, will flood the market with cheap imports produced under lower standards, threatening the survival of local agriculture. Joy Tabanao has the story.
The sea of tractors and angry farmers took over the plazas of Valencia, forming massive roadblocks to signal the rejection of Brussels' latest trade policies under the banner for the future of our countryside. Demonstrators denounced the EU-Mercosur pact, which they claim creates a disastrous imbalance by favoring industrial sectors over agricultural ones. Farmers argue that products from South American nations like Brazil and Argentina are treated with chemicals banned in Europe, creating what they call unfair competition.
Están negociando con Mercosur y con la India para poder traer productos agrícolas aquí que, aparte de la mala calidad, es los productos químicos que allí pueden tratar, cosa que aquí nos tienen prohibida.
The mobilization is not just about prices, but food security. Protesters, some dressed as cows or oranges, warn that the deal will replace high-quality Spanish produce with inferior imports, ultimately penalizing the consumer. The agricultural sector in Spain, alongside peers in France and Italy, feels used as a bargaining chip in broader diplomatic maneuvers.
Se viene aquí una agricultura que nos va a hundir. Va a hundir España, Europa, Francia, Italia, que son los países más productivos del arroz.
The protest comes at a critical time, while EU member states gave the green light for the deal earlier this month. The European Parliament recently voted to refer the pact to the Court of Justice of the European Union. This legal move could stall the implementation for over a year as judges examine its compatibility with EU law, providing a temporary window of hope for the demonstrators, with a major rally already planned for Madrid on February 12th. The farmers vow to continue their tractorada until their demands for reciprocity and fair prices are met. As the legal battle begins in the courts, the battle for the European countryside continues in the streets. Joy Tabanao, your citizen correspondent reporting for Newsline World.
An economist asserted that the lack of strong governance and constantly changing policies in the tourism sector are hindering the Philippines' economic growth and its ability to attract investors. Prince Tripoli for the detail.
The Department of Economy, Planning and Development, or DepDev Secretary Arsenio Balisacan said that tourism is one of the sectors with the greatest potential to attract more investors to the country. This comes alongside the release of the data from the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA showing that the Philippines' GDP growth fell to 3% in the fourth quarter of 2025. However, according to economist Cora Guidote, one of the reasons for the slow economic recovery is the government's inconsistent tourism policies, particularly toward tourists from China, which has been one of the country's largest sources of tourist arrivals.
Dapat maging friendly tayo sa China kasi yan ang pinakamaraming turista na dumadating dito dati. Ang laki na ng binagsak niyan. So, ewan ko ba, ang pulisiya ng Pilipinas tapos ang ingay-ingay pa ng mga senador.
She added that aggressive statements by Philippine officials against China, one of the country's major sources of tourist arrivals, also contribute to the problem.
Nakakasama sa turismo, nakakasama sa business. Kasi, alam mo, pag may galit na naririnig sila, galing sa mga, very senior officials, mga senador. Tapos gagamit ng words na FU, di ba? Anong klaseng, syempre, galit yung naririnig nila. So, pag ang isang opisyal galit, may security implications yan. Parang tinatakot mo yung mga tao dun sa bansang yun. Ba't sila pupunta dito? Kung takot sila, diba? Ba't mo tatakutin?
Guidotti further said that although the Philippines is hosting several ASEAN activities, if the direction of tourism and diplomacy is not fixed, and if current governance continues, the country may end up serving merely as a transit point, while actual revenues go to more prepared countries in the region.
Kaya yung mga investors ay pumunta dito kasi hanggang ngayon, bad governance. I'm saying it straight. The governance is very bad at the moment. And investors are always looking at good governance as one of the metrics.
She stressed that the need for debt reforms in government, as well as accountability and transparency among elected officials. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Prince Tripoli, SMNA News.
The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, has officially launched a new long-term roadmap aimed at strengthening tourism across the region. The ASEAN Tourism Sectoral Plan 2026 to 2030 was formally introduced during the ASEAN Tourism Ministers meeting. Paul Montipon is in Cebu to give us the latest updates happening there.
The newly launched ASEAN Tourism Sectoral Plan 2026 to 2030 outlines key strategies to boost tourism development, strengthen regional cooperation, and enhance resilience among Southeast Asian nations. The ASEAN Tourism Sectoral Plan 2026 to 2030 focuses on innovation and security, investment, opportunities, and trade among member countries across maritime, land, and air connectivity. During the meeting, ASEAN leaders discussed strategic priorities including resilient tourism development, empowerment of human capital, seamless accessibility, digital innovation, tourism diversification, and sustainable tourism growth. Officials expect a stronger collaboration among the 11 Southeast Asian nations, particularly in skills exchange, human capital development, travel facilitation, and digital empowerment, key drivers seen to further strengthen the region's tourism industry. For host Cebu, the plan also highlights recovery and resilience, especially for host Cebu, which has recently faced major challenges. Aside from the pandemic, the province was hit by strong earthquakes, typhoons, and other disasters that claimed lives and disrupted livelihoods. The Department of Tourism is prioritizing the revival of local tourism to restore income for communities dependent on agriculture, fishing, travel, and other tourism-related sectors. From this year until 2030, the roadmap is expected to bring improvements in the country's tourism landscape, supported by stronger ASEAN cooperation and increased foreign investments from neighboring Southeast Asian nations. With regional unity and long-term planning at its core, the ASEAN Tourism Sectoral Plan is seen as a major step toward a more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable tourism industry, not only for Cebu, but for the entire Southeast Asian region. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, reporting for Newsline World, this has been Paul Montibon, SMNA News.
England have named fast bowler Jofra Archer in the playing 11 for Friday's first T20 against Sri Lanka in Kandy. Meanwhile, New York Knicks star Karl Anthony Towns has played down trade rumors linking him to a possible deal for Bucks forward Giannis Antetokounmpo ahead of the NBA trade deadline. Here's Carlo De La Peña for the update.
England come into the opening T20 after a confident 53-run win
in the one-day series and now turn their attention to the three-match T20 series ahead of next month's T20 World Cup. Jofra Archer makes his return after recovering from a side strain that forced him to miss the final two tests of the Ashes. The 30-year-old was not initially included in the T20 squad and was expected to return at the World Cup, but has been cleared to play sooner than planned. Ben Duckett misses out with a bruised finger, allowing Jos Buttler to open the batting. Buttler will also make his record equaling 401st appearance in an England shirt. England team for the first T20: Phil Salt, Jos Buttler, Jacob Bethel, Tom Banton, Harry Brook as captain, Sam Curran, Will Jacks, Jamie Overton, Liam Dawson, Jofra Archer, and Adil Rashid. Meanwhile, after New York's 119-92 win over Toronto, speculation has grown linking Karl Anthony Towns to a potential trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Towns addressed the rumors, saying they don't affect his focus. He added that he has been part of trade talks for nearly a year, but remains committed to helping the Knicks win. Several teams, including the Knicks, Warriors, Heat, and Timberwolves, have been mentioned as potential suitors, though New York's limited draft assets could complicate a deal. Despite offensive struggles, Towns continues to impact games. Against Toronto, he scored 8 points and grabbed 22 rebounds, raising his season average to 11.6, the NBA's best. Reports say Milwaukee is now more open to offers for Antetokounmpo as the February 5 trade deadline approaches. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo De La Peña bringing you the latest sports news.
Legendary rocker Neil Young is offering a unique show of support to the people of Greenland, granting them a free access to his entire music catalog amid rising geopolitical tensions involving the United States and NATO. Meanwhile, Australia's One Nation leader, Pauline Hanson, says common sense prevailed after a last-minute decision to cancel screenings of her new satirical film was overturned, allowing the movie to be shown in major cities across the country. Blake Ann has the details.
Veteran rock musician Neil Young is offering a powerful gesture of solidarity to the people of Greenland, free access to his entire music catalog. In a post published in his blog, Young announced that residents of the semi-autonomous Danish territory will be able to stream all of his songs and music films at no cost and in the highest audio quality. The move comes amid growing geopolitical tensions as Greenland's future has recently become a point of strain between the United States and NATO. Young said he hopes his music can help ease what he described as unwarranted stress and threats faced by the people of Greenland. He added that the gesture is meant as a show of support during what he called a difficult and uncertain time. The longtime artist has been known for using his platform to speak out on political and social issues, and this latest move underscores his continued activism through music. One Nation leader Pauline Hanson has welcomed the reversal of a last-minute decision to cancel screenings of her new film, saying she is pleased that common sense prevailed. The center is currently promoting her 90-minute animated movie titled A Super Progressive Movie, which is being screened in Australia's major capital cities. The film, rated M, describes itself as a satirical feature that takes aim at what it calls Australia's political and cultural chaos, using bold humor and sharp commentary. The initial cancellation of the screenings sparked debate before the decision was overturned at the 11th hour, allowing the showings to go ahead as planned. Hansen says the reversal is a win for free expression as the film continues its nationwide run. And that's all for now. This is Blake Ann, bringing you the latest showbiz.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the words of the sun. Discipline and sacrifice are the ingredients to success. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Trey Gomez. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.